Hey everyone, welcome back to Bagel TCG. Today we're going to be going over upgrades for the Dash.io Armory deck. I honestly think this Armory deck is already quite solid right out of the box, but there's a few upgrades that I think make this deck increase quite a lot in power level without increasing the price that much. Just to start, you can see it says it's $10 on TCG Player. I think some of the cards are not considered priced yet, but we'll just assume this is starting out at $40, right? Because I think that's what the Armory deck starts out as. Let's talk a bit about Dash.io's strategy. Of course, you can look at the top of your deck at any time, and then once per turn, you can play a Mechanologist item with cost 0 or 1 from the top of your deck, as though it were an instant. It does cost an additional resource to play it this way. So if you get to do this, you essentially get a free card draw, right? Because it's from the top of your deck, you're just paying the resources from it. It's basically like it was in your hand. It's a free card, really, really, really powerful. Yeah, a pretty insane ability. The biggest drawback is that they give you 4 less starting life than the average hero, and that's just because the hero ability is so broken that they had to make her a little more fragile to balance it out. Now the best item, one of the best items to grab from the top that we're going to build the deck around is Boom Grenade. This card's really good. Of course, every time you play an item, you're already kind of getting 2 damage because you get a steam counter on your weapon whenever a Magnologist item enters the arena, and then you can remove one of those steam counters to attack for 2 damage. That's a free attack. So anytime an item enters, you basically get 2 free damage right there. Now, Boom Grenade says when a Mechanologist attack action you control hits a hero, you destroy this and deal 4 damage to them. So 4 extra damage, really, really strong. It's also cost 0, so you can play it off the top for only 1 resource, and it's pretty nice. The best part, of course, is that it's a surprise, right? You play it off the top, the opponent doesn't know it's there, and you can surprise them. Not always is that possible. Sometimes you just have to play it up front, and that's fine if you just have to do that. But that is kind of the main card we're going to build around a bit. Cerebellum Processor is another insane item that the deck comes with. This lets you use an action to draw a card. The biggest downside is that that action doesn't have go again, so this will end your turn unless you have another way to generate action points. One of the main ways we can do that is by cranking off the top. So when an item enters, if it has crank, you can remove a steam counter from it to gain an action point. If you play this off the top, that is +1 action points, which is really nice, which you might want to do pretty often. Now, I think the one of the bigger issues with this deck is it's not built quite enough around 1 power or 1 cost 4 damage, right? Because the hardest thing for most decks in Flesh and Blood to block is 4 damage. The average card blocks 3, and so if you attack for 4, the majority of the time they will have to either just take 4 damage or block 3 and take 1 damage, or block 3 and give you armor. But of course, armor is limited. There is only so much armor they can give. So eventually they will have to take the damage, right? And that's really what you want because, of course, you're trying to get your boom grenades to hit. And that's really key. Also, you're an aggro deck, so killing your opponent is just important, right? So you really want to be hitting as much as possible. For that reason, I think a lot of these 3 damage cards, even though they cost 0, are not quite as good. It's a lot easier for your opponent to block with the 3 block. And then, yeah, you've traded 1 card for 1 card, which is fine, but you aren't really dealing any damage like you want. It's better to pay 1 extra resource to attack for 4. Then you get to get some damage through and hopefully get a boom grenade to connect as well. So that's one of the first optimizations we're going to go in and do. I'm going to remove these 3 power attacks. I'm going to, I think, even remove these yellow 0 to 60s, even though they're quite good. I'm going to remove this 6 power throttle here. Yeah, 6 is obviously quite big, but it's still just 2-3 blocks from hand. And then I'm going to even remove these max velocities to the sideboard. They're nice. It's obviously pretty insane damage. 10 damage is really good. But it's quite a lot to ask for. You have to boost 3 times first. This deck does boost, but not as much as straight up Dash IE, the other Dash, because yeah, you're playing items out as well, so you have some stuff mixed in there. And then yeah, I think we can also probably cut these backup protocols we don't really care about returning blue attacks as much. Uh, Convection Amplifier is really, really nice, but it's more of a sideboard card. This lets you give an attack dominate. Not really useful at all against aggro decks, where you aren't really interested that much in giving something dominate. But yeah, pretty good otherwise. Now let's add 2 more boom grenades in. We want the blue copies as well, so now we'll have all 9 boom grenades. I'm also going to add in Outpace here. Outpace is probably our best 1 for 4. I'm really surprised they didn't include this initially. It is just like a common, so I don't know why it's not in there. Maybe they thought it was too good somehow. But yeah, this is a really good one. This says boost. This can't be defended by equipment, so they have to give you 2 cards or let it hit. It's really hard for them to block this out. So we're going to add these in. This is already looking a bit better. We have some more 4 powers here. We also have all 9 boom grenades. Let's see, what else do we want to optimize? I think that's probably good for, well, let's add some Sprocket Rockets. Sprocket Rocket is technically a 0 for 3, so kind of goes against what I said, but it says if an item or equipment was banished from boosting this, this gets +1. So if you can banish an item from the top, and of course you get a look at the top of your deck, so you know if that's going to happen or not. This is a 0 for 4, which is very good, and is going to let you hit with those boom grenades a lot easier. So that is the kind of initial addition of the more powerful attacks with boom grenades. You can see these are all commons, I think, so we added $0 to the deck at the moment. But let's move on to a little more pricey additions, which is going to be upgrading the item package, right? At the moment, the items we have, of course, Cerebellum Processor, which is pretty insane. And then we have the boom grenades, which are really good as well. We have Red Backup Protocol, which is good. It lets you get a new red card back. And Dissolving Shield, this is maybe more of a sideboard card. It's not bad. It's quite good, actually, but maybe a bit better into aggro decks or decks that deal more instances of 1 that you can't block as easily. Yeah, maybe we can keep it in the main deck, actually. It's not a bad item at all. But let's add some more items. So the first thing is the Teklos. So Teklo, yeah, we'll type them in because there's a lot of Teklo stuff. So Teklo Core, this card is really, really good. Maybe the best item in the deck. And it's 0 cost. It enters with 2 steam counters, and at the beginning of your action phase, you remove a steam counter, and you just gain straight up 2 free resources. So really insane. 4 resources across 2 turns. It also gets you that steam counter on your weapon. It's a blue, so it's really flexible. There's really nothing to not like around Teklo Core. It is probably the most common item you're going to get with Spark of Genius, which we're going to add here as well. This is your tutor card. It lets you search your deck for a mech item with cost X, put it into the arena, then shuffle. And if you boosted this turn, you draw a card. So you just get that for free, which is really insane. Of course, you pay XX, so if something costs 1, you have to actually pay 2 resources for it to get it. So the best option is to usually grab something for 0, because then it's just 0, 0. It's still 0. So most often you're going to get Teklo Core or Cerebellum Processor. Both really good grabs. Make sure you boost first so you draw a card after. Really, really, really powerful tutor card that we're going to want to have. And then the other Teklo card, Teorepounder. This is another great blue, and this is going to help set us up, especially when we are against a slower deck. Into aggro decks, sometimes we don't have time to play this. In the very early turns, it's fine if you can start with this turn 0, but after the first turn, it's a little slow against aggro decks. You might not be able to get all 3 uses out of this, where it has 3 steam counters. Once per turn, when you boost, you can remove a steam counter to give that attack +2, so it's 6 total damage across 3 turns, which is really good. But yeah, like I said, sometimes you don't have time to set this up and against aggro decks, but it is a blue, so I think it's kind of fine. But the really powerful combo is when you can get it with BIOS update. So this is really insane combo here. This is a 0 cost. It says the next attack action you boost this turn gets +3. Fine, right? Not exactly what I've been wanting. Like I said, we usually want 4 points, so this is only giving it +3. But it says the next time a mech item with cost 2 or less is banished to pay a boost cost, put it into the arena. Now that's crazy, especially because you get to look at the top of your deck, so you know if there's an item on top or not. So you can sit this in Arsenal, wait until you see a good item on top. Zero cost item is still fine because you're straight up getting it for free. So you're dealing 3 damage with this card, giving your next thing +3, and you get the free item on top. Really, really insane. But the best combo is, of course, with Teorepounder, because it costs 2, so you're also getting 2 free resources, right? You're getting this for free off the top, which is really, really insane. So that is a really good combo. Definitely what you're going to want with the deck there. Now, I think this is already pretty good. We've only upgraded, I think, $50. Yeah, the Teklo cores are 10 each. The Pounders are only 260 each. The Spark of Geniuses are 236 each. And the BIOS updates are literally 50 cents. It's crazy because these are all Majestics that I consider pretty important to the deck. And yeah, most of them are pretty cheap. I mean, the most expensive one is Teklo Core at $10 each. So definitely grab some of those. Now we are at 66 cards, so we're gonna trim some of the fat here. We're at 27 blues, which is just way too many, so we're gonna trim 6 blues. Now I think, yeah, the worst ones are probably Zipper Hit. This is 3, which is, like I said, not really what we want, so we're gonna get rid of that. Data Link is probably also not that necessary. 0 to 60 is kind of interesting. It's not 4, obviously, but it's 2, which is kind of nice for 0 cost, so it's probably worth keeping here. Expedite maybe is better. Maybe Zipper Hit is better than Expedite, so we'll switch those out. So now we have 60 cards. I think this is pretty good at the moment. 21 blues is maybe a little higher than we need, but I really, really like this setup. And as you can see, we've only increased the cost by $50, and I think the deck's already in a pretty good spot. So this is going to be the first version of the upgrade, so we're going to call this one low budget. And now I'm going to make a new copy, and we're going to upgrade it to what I kind of consider full budget. The main things that we're going to switch here are to much better equipment. So I think the equipment suite the deck comes with is actually quite good, but it's, not optimal per se. I think you don't really want any of it in the best dash deck. Of course, one of the better boots are common, so these don't really cost anything to add. But I think the rest are all legendaries. You want adaptive plating as your arms. Of course, you can pick whatever slot, but we're going to pick arms. You want Teklo Foundry Heart as the better chest piece. And then you want Crown, I can't type Crown of Providence as your headpiece. So you can see we already just added like $200 to the deck. These are legendaries, so they're quite pricey. Especially the generic Crown of Providence. The nice thing is this goes into a lot of decks, so you'll get to reuse it. If you want to just upgrade with one of these, by far the most important is Teklo Foundry Heart. It's also the cheapest, which is really nice, so I would get this one first. Adaptive plating is honestly not that important, so this Crown of Providence, I mean, you could just go in monetary order, cheapest, but this doesn't matter too much which one of these you go for. If you don't want to ever play either of them, I think you're fine with just the default ones the deck comes with, but I would really highly recommend at least getting the Teklo Foundry Heart for $17 extra. Then in the deck, we have 2 Majestic upgrades that we want. Heist is a pretty good Majestic attack. It costs 2, which we usually don't want to spend on attack, but it's a nice breakpoint of 5 with a pretty insane on-hit, where if it hits, you put an item with cost 0 or 1 from your banished zone into the arena. So if at any point you've banished a Cerebellum Processor or you banished a Teklo Core, you get to slam that into the arena. Really, really good. And then Pulse Wave Harpoon is the other really good Majestic boost card. A 1 for 4, so the 4 breakpoint we want. And this is really good into aggro decks, where when it attacks, they reveal X cards from their hand, where X is the number of times you boosted this combat chain. Then you can choose an action card with defense less than or equal to X, and they have to put it on the combat chain. This is really nice because if you've boosted 3 times, well, hopefully you make this the 3rd boost. So you boost twice before it, then you play this. You can look at their hand, or they have to show you 3 cards at least. And then anything with power 3 or less, you get to slam on the chain. They have to block with it, so you're taking a card from their hands, and you get to pick the card, which is pretty nice. And of course, it's not going to block for 4, so this will still get through and hit if you have a Boom Grenade out or something like that, unless they want to give you then a second card or armor or something like that. Now for cuts, because we want to stay closer to 60, I think Dive Through Data is probably a much weaker 1 for 4 than Pulse Wave Harpoon. And then I think we can honestly cut some blues still. I think 21 is still a little high. We can probably go down to 18 even. So I'm going to cut these zipper hits. I don't think we need 3 steam canisters. This card's kind of nice as a 1 of. So maybe we'll actually just go to 2 zipper hits and 1 steam canister. This card's fine. It lets you put it on the bottom of your deck and add a steam counter on an item with Crank. It can be really nice to add an extra steam counter to Cerebellum Processor, or like emergency add a steam counter to a Boom Grenade if you don't think you can get it to hit that turn, but mostly synergizes with Cerebellum Processor. But I think 18 blues is probably fine with this deck. We're not playing that many expensive cards. It's really like, I think our only 2 costs is Heist, and then technically Teorepounder, but you're not resolving it that often. So I think this is probably the better version. What are we at right now? $400. So you can see quite a bit of upgrades there. I think it's because Heist is pretty expensive, $30 a piece. Pulse Wave Harpoon is at 16 or so a piece. So all of those are, yeah, pretty big upgrades overall, plus the equipment. I think we can just add some sideboard in here at the end. So we're going to add some kind of fun sideboard cards. First, we have Visiertronic Model I. This is an extra 2 Arcane Barrier that we're going to put in the sideboard. We have Prismatic Lens. This is a nice anti-fatigue card. Lets you put items back on top of your deck. We'll add one of those. Another anti-fatigue card is Plasma Mainline. We're going to add one of these. This gives you extra steam counters to put on your other equipment. To counter other dashes, we're probably going to add a full 3 TikTok clocks. This lets you blow it up and then blow up items that your opponent controls. You can also blow up items you control, but usually you don't want to do that. Also against fatigue decks, which most of is what our sideboard is for. Our main deck is kind of already set up for most aggro decks, but the sideboard is kind of for anti-fatigue. System Reset lets you banish items and then return them, which is really nice in combo with stuff like Teklo Core or Cerebellum Processor to reset how many counters they have. So we'll play 3 of those in the sideboard. Hyper Scrapper. This is when you increase into fatigue, because usually into fatigue decks, you're going to play almost all of your sideboard, so you're going to be at like 70 plus cards or somewhere around that. So you want extra blues as well, so you're not too low on resources. So we're going to add 2 Hyper Scrappers. This is just a nice card to banish items from your graveyard and get it plus X, so you can swing for like 8 at the end of the game. And then Outpace is really nice into defensive decks to get those Boom Grenades through. So we're going to add 3 blues of this to the sideboard. I don't think we actually want these max Vs in the end. And then if we really want to ball out, actually I think that's good. You could, if you really want to increase your budget a lot, you can see that only added 30 for the sideboard. So 430 is still fairly cheap, but we can add a whole $130 batting this Balance of Justice to the sideboard. This is probably the better headpiece into any aggro deck that you think draws 2. Probably play that over like one of the TikTok clocks. So this is probably the like most optimized version of the deck that you would take if you want to compete at like Worlds or something like that. But as I've talked about, you don't really need this version. If we looked at that low budget version, I think you could win any Armory or probably even a ProQuest with that low budget version. That's only $50 of upgrades. Maybe if you want to do like $70 of upgrades, you can get this Teklo Foundry Heart as well, which I think is a nice upgrade. I'll have both of these lists linked in the description. You can look at, I kept all the stuff I took out in the maybe board, so you can also see what was switched. If you have any questions or comments, please be sure to leave them below. I would love to answer them. I would love to discuss these decks. I hope this helps anyone who isn't sure exactly how to upgrade it. You know, maybe you got the Armory deck, you really like it, but you want to see how much stronger you can make it. These are kind of the 2 upgrades, the low budget and then the high budget. This is still one of the cheaper heroes in the game. Even fully upgraded, it's 570. A lot of heroes are like over 1,000, so good hero to pick up. But thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, leave those comments, and I'll see you next time.